the best thing about this is that I did get gas last night, and thank God that I did, because I am running behind this morning. You know what, let me see if it's telling me to take the tollway. Wait. We're in simulation, and we're just like pretty much watching our classmates do the work in the other classroom, and we're just chilling. So this is how our room is set up. And we're gonna be here just for a while, so that's pretty much what we have going on. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe so you can stay updated to future videos. So guys, I just got home from clinical. It was exhausting. It was very exhausting. So before we even start about what we did in clinical, you guys have already seen the video so far, but what I did not mention is the things that I actually have to bring for clinical. So I always have, of course, my stethoscope, my pen light, and then a notebook to write on, which for me, I use my iPad for notes, so I just bring my iPad and write on that, because it's really important you have those materials. When you're in person for clinical, always keep a notebook. I have a small little notebook that I got from Walmart. It was about 30 cents, and I got like 8 of those because my clinical was 8 weeks in person, so I had a new one per week just to help me stay organized with my material. So that's something that's really important to have. Like, you just have to keep up with the information that you're getting. Whether you get an IS bar or not, you still need to make your own notes. So that's what I do for myself. So you have your notebook, you have your stethoscope, you have your pen light. Do you have Red Bull or do you have coffee? You need one or the other. I'm sorry. Like, I myself try to stay away from coffee just because of like medical reasons, but sometimes like I'll risk drinking some coffee, because when you're in person for clinical, you are going to be doing a lot of like running around. Like, that's just what it is. Me personally, I work hand in hand with anyone that's working with my patients. So if there's a PCT assigned to my patient or a nurse assistant, I do whatever they do. So if the nurse assistant needs help, I'm gonna help, because it's my patient, you know. So I just want to be a part of everything with the patient. So I personally do everything with all healthcare professionals that actually see this patient. So you need to have some energy. You also have to rest the night before. That was one thing that I failed to do for clinical when I was in person. I would get like 4 to 5 hours of sleep the night prior, then I would go into clinical with no energy. But whether I have breakfast or not, I will always make sure I have like either coffee, tea, or like a Red Bull. Unless you're just a person that naturally has energy and you don't, I don't know, maybe you get 12 hours of sleep at night. I don't. But if you're that person, obviously you don't need the caffeine. Those are the things that I brought with me to clinical, in person and on campus for simulation. So this week for clinical, we had a patient who was a diabetic patient. When you go into clinical, like, you just like you go over pre-work from the night before, so like any medications that you had to refresh yourself on, because more than likely those medications that you're given for pre-work, you're going to be given to your patient in clinical. And so our patient was homeless. They were diabetic, and then we had another patient that was a stroke patient. And so with that, we had to administer medication. So they break the groups up, and the first group goes into simulation, and then the other group actually watches them to see what they did, how they did it, and so on. The instructor also assigns you a role. I was the medication nurse this week, but I've been the assessment nurse, I've been the charge nurse, I've been the documentation nurse before. So you always get a new role. So I was the medication nurse, and so my duty was to, of course, to do like an assessment on the patient, as far as like whenever you walk in any patient's room, you acknowledge the patient, you identify yourself, you confirm the patient's identity, you provide privacy, you hand sanitize, or hand hygiene, not really sanitize because you should wash your hands. And then after you confirm the patient's identity, you confirm the medication that they're going to be getting compared to their identity. And so that was what I had to do. So my patient actually had a blood glucose of like 34, and the level of conscious had went from ANO times 4 to ANO times 1, and so their level of conscious was continuing to decline, but also they had become non-responsive. And so what I've been taught in actual class of MedSurg, you're always taught if a patient loses their conscious and they are diabetic, you do a blood glucose. If the blood glucose comes below a certain level, you administer dextrose. What they did not mention also is that in order to administer dextrose, it has to already be an order for the patient. I don't know, for some people maybe it sounds like common sense, but for me, I was like, wait, what? I always just thought it was like it was in sync. So the patient blood glucose is so low, they're not responsive, you just give dextrose. But you can't, because if you don't have an actual order for it, you're not supposed to administer it. So during simulation, I actually administered dextrose to a patient, and even though the patient gained their conscious back, I would have gotten in trouble if this was real life, because I didn't have an order for it. And so what my clinical instructor pretty much explained to us is like, even if that is what is actually gonna like optimize a patient's health status, that is not what you're supposed to do if you don't have an order for it. And so in the case that you did do something like that, if you had a close relationship with the physicians, you can actually let them like, hey, I administered dextrose for this patient and the patient is fine, can you put in an order? And that wouldn't be an issue in real life. But if you don't have a good rapport with this doctor and you are new to the floor and new to the facility, chances are they're kind of not going to be so happy about it. Yeah, you saved the patient's life, but you did something that wasn't in order. So that was something that I learned that was new to me. Oh, that's like the biggest difference in person versus simulation, because in simulation you get to make a lot of these mistakes, and then you're not as penalized for it. Even though those things that they teach you, it kind of sticks with you. So like now I know that I can never administer dextrose without assuring I have an order for it, and these things just like really stick with you. You're kind of just like, oh my god, I made this huge mistake, and now you know better for next time. Versus like in person, when you are in the moment, I've never given medication incorrectly, even though in clinical you're kind of on your own. Like you are assigned a preceptor, but once you are assigned that patient, that preceptor expects that you're going to do all these things for your patient that you're supposed to do. I also think that the only faulty part about it is that the preceptors sometimes assume that we know everything that they think we should know by the time we're in that clinical. So like for MedSurg, for example, they assume that we should know everything about a diabetic patient, everything about a stroke patient, and so on and so forth. However, for MedSurg-I, we didn't cover diabetes. Even though we discussed diabetes in pathophysiology, that was a year ago. So I was in pathophysiology in May 2020. It's now in July 2021. And so when you're in clinical, they expect that you know these things, but we really haven't like refreshed on them as far as MedSurg goes, because you learn those things in MedSurg II, which is what I'm in now. But when I was in MedSurg I, I was in clinical, and I didn't really know too much about what I was actually supposed to be doing for my diabetic patients and my stroke patients. So I kind of just went with whatever the nurse told me to do, and I didn't know how to do these things myself. So that was definitely a big insecurity for me, because I just felt very uncomfortable. So those are things that you learn, and for me personally, I actually learn best when I'm able to request for the nurse to slow down, one, because if you don't know it, you don't know it, right? So I told nurse, can you repeat that please? I'm trying to write these things down. And they usually don't have a problem with it, because they see that you know what you're doing with the patient. You don't want to be making mistakes, especially because you're a student and you still could be penalized for things that you do. So I always request for the nurse to slow down. If I have questions about the patient, I always ask those questions. I don't allow myself to get flustered and assume that I'm supposed to know all these things. If I don't know it, I don't know it. And I'd rather be safe than sorry. Something else that I would say is that like my classmates and I, we try to like keep a pretty close relationship, and like if we had questions or concerns about clinical, we would like speak with each other about it, but also we would like communicate with like our mentors or anyone else, and if they provided us with a better insight, we would share it amongst each other. So that was great too, like being able to have a close relationship with them. And also like picking their brain, because like one of my classmates, she actually works in healthcare. She's like a surgical tech nurse, so she knows a lot more about the clinical setting than the rest of us do, because I'm in social service, my other classmate is like in finance, and then another classmate is, I think she's a PCT, but our experiences all differ, you know, and so we just like kind of like use each other to gain like the best knowledge for our patients. So going forward, I did just get my clinical placement for pediatrics. So I will be starting pediatrics in August, late August. And so I'm going to be at Commerce Children's Hospital, which is the pediatric unit of University of Chicago, where I was for MedSurgII. So I'm thrilled. I'm very excited. I am just like, I kind of knew I was going to get placed here. I was just like, not speaking on it, because I don't like to speak prematurely on my blessings. So I was just like, fingers crossed. But I got that placement, and I'm so excited about that, because that's actually where my son goes for his healthcare. My son was also born at that hospital, and my primary care provider is also at the University of Chicago. So I'm just thrilled to now be able to work into the pediatric unit at this actual hospital. Obviously, if I get a job offer here post undergrad, this will literally like make my life. But yeah, so that's pretty much what's going on. That's what's next. And yeah guys, like things are just really moving along. So my schedule is for August through October, I'm going to be in pediatrics, and then late October until December, I'm going to be in mental health. I may also be taking another course with mental health. I just haven't confirmed it yet, but if so, it's going to be like an online course, like more than likely nutrition. So yeah, that's pretty much what's going on, guys, and I'm so thrilled. I'm so excited. So if you guys haven't already, please like this video, comment, and subscribe. And if you've made it this far, you are amazing, and I appreciate you.